Since the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Xi Jinping's statement of no limits to China-Russia cooperation is becoming a reality. China has not only secretly provided Russia with military weapons in violation of United Nations sanctions, but has also showcased its determination to jointly resist the West through joint naval military exercises. Furthermore, China has been openly flooding Russia with light industrial products and daily necessities to alleviate the urgent needs caused by the departure of Western companies from Russia. According to statistics from the Atlantic Council in April of this year, China's overall exports to Russia in 2023 have increased by 1.2 times compared to 2019. Notably, China's car exports to Russia have surged ninefold. Media reports indicate that Chinese goods are flooding into Russia, with containers from China piling up at Russian ports. In response to Russia's urgent need for supplies, Chinese businesses from various sectors have heeded the call of the Chinese authorities and aggressively entered the Russian market, filling the gaps left by Western sanctions. Consequently, Russian consumers have had no choice but to fully embrace Chinese products. The Expo Electronica, the largest international electronics exhibition in Russia and the Eurasian Economic Union region, showcases the entire production chain from component manufacturing to the final development and assembly of electronic systems. This year's exhibition was held in Moscow from April 16 to April 18. According to the World Journal, there were a total of 446 exhibitors this year, with Chinese manufacturers accounting for 348 of them. Other exhibitors included those from host country Russia, as well as Belarus, Armenia, the UAE, Singapore, Serbia, and several regions within the Russian Federation. In comparison, the 2021 Expo Electronica had only 8 Chinese and Hong Kong companies participating. This number increased to 57 in 2022, and by 2023, it had risen to 119. In other words, Chinese businesses, initially not very welcome, have benefited from the situation, effectively turning the Expo Electronica into a Chinese product exhibition. Among the Chinese exhibitors, at least 3 companies have been added to the U.S. sanctions list for assisting Russia in circumventing international trade restrictions. According to records from the Chinese Ministry of Finance, IMAX chip technology was sanctioned by the United States in December 2023 for repeatedly shipping advanced electronic products to Russia. IMAX chip is one of the top 5 foreign sources of microelectronics for Russia. Xizhen E technology was similarly sanctioned by the U.S. in December 2023 for providing electronic components used by the Russian government. Sino Electronics was sanctioned by the U.S. as early as September 2022 for collaborating with Radio Automatica, a Russian defense procurement agency. Sino Electronics is an international sponsor of this year's Expo Electronica in Moscow. However, the exhibition hall did not live up to the advertised bustling atmosphere. The massive exhibition hall had few visitors, with Chinese exhibitors describing it as more sellers than buyers. There is a video circulating online shot by a Chinese blogger showing the venue of the 2024 ROSUPAC held in Moscow from June 18 to June 21st this year. The ROSUPAC is the largest exhibition for packaging-related equipment and materials in Russia and the surrounding independent regions. Established in 1996, it is also one of the world's renowned packaging exhibitions. Each year, it attracts tens of thousands of packing industry professionals from Russia and around the world, making it an annual event where experts gather in Moscow to discuss and plan for the future. Everyone can take a look. At 2 o'clock, the walkways are nearly empty, with only a few people bustling about. Chinese exhibitors are occupying the exhibition halls in Moscow in another way. We can see China, 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 but there are no people at the Chinese booths. In December of last year, Sina published an article detailing the experiences of exhibitors setting up at the Moscow International Exhibition Center. The reporter noted that following the end of the pandemic, and in reality after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a large number of Chinese companies rushed to participate in exhibitions in Russia. Due to a shortage of Russian translators, local students took on part-time translation roles. The report described the growth of Chinese exhibitors at these events as exponential. By the end of 2022, Chinese businesses began visiting Russia in significant numbers, and after the new year in 2023, the number of exhibitors continued to rise. By May, 70 to 80% of the exhibition booths were occupied by Chinese exhibitors. The Mechanical Exhibition May 2023 occupied Russia's two largest exhibition halls, and almost all of the exhibitors were from China. Throughout the first half of 2023, Chinese foreign trade businesses in various sectors enjoyed a honeymoon period in Russia. However, by the end of the year, the exhibitions were largely unattended. The media summarized this trend by saying, "A rush at the start of the year and a collapse by the end." For a Russian nation accustomed to using European products, the sudden market shift to Chinese products, which they previously looked down upon, is a bitter pill to swallow. The silent suffering they endure is something only they truly understand. Statistics from July this year indicate that China's exports to Russia in the first half of the year experienced a decline for the first time in 4 years, dropping by 0.8% year on year. The latest survey shows that nearly 80% of Russian consumers believe that Chinese home appliance brands have partially or completely replaced world-class brands that exited the Russian market. Some Russian consumers have expressed their frustration, stating they've had enough. On May 16 of this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in Beijing for a 2-day state visit, his second visit to China in 7 months. Media commentators remarked that Putin could no longer display his usual bravado. He came to Beijing with great respect, referring to his relationship with President Xi Jinping as close as brothers, filled with sweet words and flattery. In contrast, Xi Jinping's reference to Putin as a good friend and good neighbor seemed somewhat perfunctory. Some commentators have noted that from the perspective of national interests, the relationship between Putin and Xi Jinping is no longer one of equal partners. Russia is in urgent need of China's assistance, and the roles of the big brother and the little brother are being reversed. A Chinese netizen proudly remarked, "In today's Russia, aside from the missiles they launch, everything else for daily living, food, clothing, and essentials is made in China." Under global economic sanctions, the once dominant Putin has had to humble himself and look to Xi Jinping for support. In 2014, Russia's annexation of Ukraine's Crimea region led to international condemnation and economic sanctions against Moscow. Xi Jinping seized the opportunity to offer strong support, and in May 2015, China and Russia signed the Joint Statement on Economic Cooperation. Under the Belt and Road Initiative, in addition to official trade, dozens of Chinese companies invested in Russia's Far East development zones and the free port of Vladivostok. Trade between the Chinese and Russian private sectors also showed an upward trend. On September 5, 2022, Russian Deputy Prime Minister and Presidential Envoy to the Far Eastern Federal District, Yuri Trechenev, stated on the Russia 24 TV program that over 90% of foreign investment in Russia's Far East comes from China. Speaking of Russia's Far East, it evokes memories of blood and tears for the older generation in China. That region was once Chinese territory, but during the Tsarist period, Russians used force to compel the Qing dynasty to sign unequal treaties, seizing over 1.5 million square kilometers of land, including areas like Sakhalin Island and Vladivostok, which are now part of Russia. After occupying the Far East, Russians either killed or expelled all the long-settled Chinese residents. In subsequent ethnic delineations, many ethnic groups were included, but notably the Han Chinese were excluded. It is said that the Russian authorities feared that recognizing the Han ethnicity would evoke painful memories of the bloody past among the Han people. Nowadays, in order to supply the Russian aggressors, the Chinese people have seemingly forgotten the painful historical wounds and actively come to this land, once filled with humiliation for the Chinese, to pursue their dreams of supporting Russia with financial gain. The most notable example is Vladivostok, a part of Chinese territory that was occupied by Russia. After facing global sanctions, Russia proactively opened the port of Vladivostok, which had been closed for over a century, to China. The aim was to create a shortcut to allow Chinese goods, including military supplies and contraband, to quickly reach various parts of Russia. Since the Russia-Ukraine war began, the United States has continuously warned China not to supply weapons and ammunition to Russia. According to the Washington-based nonprofit organization, the Center for Advanced Defense Studies, it has been discovered through tracking that China has been shipping a large amount of military equipment to Russia hidden within containers marked for civilian products. On July 1st of this year, NATO issued a joint statement publicly condemning China for providing military support to Russia for the first time. The statement accused Beijing of being a decisive enabler of Russia's war against Ukraine and demanded that China stop supplying weapon components and other technologies critical to rebuilding the Russian military. The statement also warned that China's increasing support for Russia would come at a cost. Russia, the largest country in the world by land area, spans both Europe and Asia. Despite its vast and cold territory, rich in underground minerals, it has a population of only 146 million. The former Soviet Union focused on developing heavy industry, becoming a superpower alongside the United States, with its formidable military and nuclear capabilities. However, it neglected light industry and agriculture. Its economy mainly relied on exporting oil, coal, natural gas, metal minerals, and arms, making Russia one of the world's major exporters of weapons and military equipment. However, Russia heavily depends on imports for light industrial products, machinery parts, electronic products, and daily necessities. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the country had highly developed state-owned heavy industries but faced extreme shortages of daily necessities for its citizens. This was a true reflection of Russian society at the time. In the early 1990s, many Chinese people smuggled various essential goods into Russia and sold them on carpets, demonstrating the severity of the shortages. These Chinese traders, known as international daoyue, often carried goods by train. As the train entered Russian territory, at each stop, these traders would sell goods through the train windows. Frequently, the goods were sold out before the train even reached Moscow. While the daoyue addressed some urgent needs of the lower-income Russian population, they also exposed Russians to the poor quality of Chinese products. To effectively address shortages of goods and inflation, Russia opened up the world, selling off many state-owned enterprises and attracting a flood of foreign investments. The Russian authorities annually host numerous international exhibitions and business forums in major cities across the country, carefully selecting light industrial products and daily necessities from around the world. This influx attracted major global companies and brands, turning Russian international exhibitions into competitive grounds for businesses from various countries. Although Russia spans both Europe and Asia, its populace has long been accustomed to a European lifestyle, preferring European brands, driving German cars, and using American-made computers. Chinese products were generally not seen as high quality. However, in February 2022, under Putin's call, Russia launched a massive invasion of Ukraine, shocking the world and significantly altering the lives of Russian citizens. To force Russia to stop the slaughter and withdraw from Ukraine, Western countries continuously escalated sanctions, aiming to deplete Russia's economic strength. Many Western brands and companies, including McDonald's, IKEA, Nike, and Apple, which were highly popular in Russia, either closed their stores or fully withdrew from the Russian market. In response, Chinese businesses finally gained an upper hand in front of their big brother Russia, adopting a dominant stance. Chinese-made products flooded into Russia, filling the void left by the departing Western companies. The arrogance that Russians once had dissipated, and they were compelled to embrace Chinese products. According to customs data from January to November 2023, China's car exports exceeded $54 billion, with 92% of the foreign cars imported by Russia coming from China. With the withdrawal of Apple, China's Huawei has become the top importer of tablet computers in Russia. If you walk down the streets of Moscow today, the sight of blonde Russian women and the richly classical architecture still highlights the stark difference from Eastern styles. However, when you step into any supermarket or mall, everything will seem very familiar because the vast majority of goods are made in China. Commentators have noted that future Russian nobility may find it difficult to display their wealth. They will be dressed in Chinese brands, driving Chinese-made cars, and carrying Chinese-made computers, scenes that are rare even among the wealthy in China. Some netizens jokingly say that you will no longer see McDonald's, KFC, and pizzerias on Moscow's streets. Instead, you might find Chinese dumpling shops, Shanghai three-yellow chicken, and northern-style pancakes. Apart from relying on China for daily necessities, Russia is also facing operational crises in its traditionally strong sectors. Russia is a world leader in the natural gas industry, having inherited a complete natural gas industrial system from the Soviet Union, and is capable of producing some of the world's most advanced gas turbines. However, Russia's gas turbine research and design company was acquired by Germany's Siemens, which then fully implemented Siemens gas turbine technology. The Siemens gas turbines procured by Russia had to be sent to Canada for maintenance. However, after the outbreak of the Russia-Ukraine war, Canada confiscated Russia's gas turbines, and Siemens also ceased supplying gas turbines to Russia. Consequently, Russia was forced to turn to China and Iran for equipment procurement. In 2022, Russia imported 40 gas turbines from Iran for natural gas production. This year, Russia purchased 20 GT25000 series gas turbines from China to support the construction of the Arctic 2 liquefied natural gas project. However, the Chinese-made gas turbines have caused frustration in Russia. Some Russian experts have openly expressed dissatisfaction with Chinese products, stating that regardless of how well the Chinese turbines perform in tests, they cannot compare to those made by the American company Baker Hughes or Germany's Siemens. They are also concerned about whether these turbines can operate reliably in harsh environmental conditions over the long term. In response, some Chinese media have remarked that Russia currently relies on China, yet Russian experts are ungrateful and still critical of the products. Russia's war against Ukraine has caused its international standing and economic situation to plummet, bringing the two notorious allies, Russia and China, even closer together. The question remains, how long can this no-limits friendship last?